I like robots.
We'll see.
Whoa. I can't remember what happened in 2011, but what I can remember is when movies came out. Now you might be asking yourself, why? That's such a randomly specific year. Well, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to reintroduce you to the blockbuster family action drama family action drama science fiction sport movie Real Steel. To a 9-year-old me, this movie was everything. This movie had everything. In just over 2 hours, I watched a man sell his son for money and teach a robot how to fight. Kid me thought Real Steel was perfect. But apparently, a lot of people didn't like it. Disappointing, cheesy, atrocious. I'm not gonna read this one. I don't wanna. These reviews are brutal, but are they right? Am I just looking back at a childhood memory with rose-tinted glasses? Is Real Steel actually mid? Kinda, it's a little mid. The date is October 4th, 1963. Russia's sending people to space, the civil rights movement is in high swing, and convertible cars are about to get really cheap. But tonight, as the clock strikes 9:30, you and your family are gathered around this massive television to watch Season 5, Episode 2 of a little show called The Twilight Zone. You might have heard of it. The episode, Steel, based off a short story of the same name, follows former heavyweight boxer Tim Steel Kelly and his partner/mechanic Poole as they prep their broken down robot for a fight it's sure to lose. You see, in this world, legislation was passed banning the use of actual humans in boxing. Instead, prize-fighting robots were developed to take their place. Sound familiar? I know, we'll get there. But there's a problem. You see, besides being held together by a roll of duct tape and the indomitable human spirit, their robot, Maxo, is a B2 boxing android, which, is only like 5 generations older than its opponent, so, I'd say it's pretty even. As the team tries desperately to prep Maxo for the coming storm, he breaks, and in a bout of desperation and blind courage, the forgotten heavyweight boxer turned manager decides to fight in his place. Despite numerous pleas from his partner begging him not to fight in a battle he might not even survive, Steel steps in the ring anyways, and for the next 2 minutes and 20 seconds proceeds to get absolutely mollywopped. Collapsing to the floor after what can only be described as a monumental ass whooping, the only thing that runs through Steele's mind is fixing Maxo up and getting him back in the ring. As the camera slowly pans out, the iconic narration of Rod Serling leaves us with this: portrait of a losing side, proof positive that you can't outpunch machinery, proof also of something else, that no matter what the future brings, man's capacity to rise to the occasion will remain unaltered.
Oh.
48 entire years after that episode of The Twilight Zone, and the world was introduced to what I can only imagine was the love child of Shawn Levy, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and probably ayahuasca. So now that you kind of understand what happened in Steel, let's quickly go over what happened in Real Steel so we can answer the question, was it mid, or has marching ever closer to the infinite void that is death made us grow cynical and unable to find enjoyment and whimsy as we once did in our years of adolescence? Sorry. I think it's about time we talk about... This is Charlie. Think of him like Real Steel's version of Kelly. He's a boxer who was forced to retire as the world changed around him, and now he spends his days trying to make a quick buck off whatever bot he can get his hands on. Charlie is also not a good dude. Almost immediately, he's established as a sort of morally gray scammer who's deeply in debt, who also just so happens to be an absentee father. Boo, disgusting, deplorable stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, absolutely deplorable. The Greatest Showman? More like the worst dad. Am I right, guys? Come on, can we get a clap? I know. This is Max. Max is Charlie's son who he hasn't seen in years. Max's mom, who we never actually get to see, just got KO'd off screen, and now somebody's gotta take care of him. Max's aunt thinks that she should take him. Her husband, on the other hand, wants to spend the summer in Italy and doesn't really want Max to take away from whatever geriatric lovemaking might ensue. Ugh. To make a long story short, Charlie pawns off Max for $100,000, 50 to watch him for the summer, and 50 to return him when they get back. And thus, the story of Real Steel is born. Both Max and Charlie eventually bond over a shared love for robot boxing, and after Max finds a G2 sparring bot named Adam, the father-son duo quickly goes from semi-laughingstock to contenders for the world robot boxing belt. Which is almost like if the dude who sells you coke went to school to be a pharmacist. It's like, I can kind of see how you got there, but wow, I didn't expect it. They fight this guy, and Anthony Mackie's here, and then they fight this guy, and whoa, it's Evangeline Lilly. But then they get beat up by this guy, and Charlie's like, no, I'm not a good dad, which, any of us could have probably told you, but then he's like, wait, maybe I can be a good dad, which is probably unlikely, but not as unlikely as Adam beating this guy Zues. Zues is the reigning world robot boxing champion. He basically just looks like a Bionicle just filled to the brim with anabolic steroids. Like literally he is just this guy. Just imagine this guy with a shit ton of tren. It's a couple problems there. Mainly, the problem with robot boxing is the sport kind of just gets dominated by whoever has the most money to throw at the most expensive robot. In this case, Talk, racist voice Machido, and Ivanka Trump dumped millions into Zues, turning him into an absolute weapon who throws around other robots like a Navy SEAL fighting a sickly Victorian boy.
The bots emerge from their corner.
But along comes Charlie, Max, and Adam. Between Charlie's boxing experience and Max's probably hyperfixation, the group are able to put up a pretty good fight. And though they might not win, by the time the credits roll, we watch as Max and Charlie successfully go from strangers to father and son. Aww. So why don't people like Real Steel? Besides this, I still don't want to read this. You already got this far in the video. I don't think I need to explain the gripes that some people have for the robot boxing movie from 13 years ago. So rather than beat a dead horse and talk about a bunch of issues you can probably draw from just looking at the poster, I want to talk about two things I've encountered while rewatching this movie that I, as biased as I may be, don't exactly love. And for me, those two things are some of the direction and the staging. When Levy was originally brought on by the Steven Spielberg and Stacy Snyder to make a robot boxing movie, he made something abundantly clear. If all you want is more robo action, there's lots of other filmmakers who can do that capably, but he didn't feel like that was a fresh take on the sci-fi robot story. Instead, Levy's vision was more of a character story, an underdog story, a father-son story, than a robot boxing story. And to be honest, I think he did that really well. While the fights in this movie are badass and look really good for the time, for me, it's the story that plays out between Max and Charlie that makes me love this film so much. The problem is how it's shot. Especially in the earlier parts of the film, Levy utilizes a ton of medium to medium full shots. And oftentimes, characters within these shots are kind of just standing in one spot talking at each other. And while I think that's perfectly fine for an action movie, I don't think it really helps the more dramatic character study vibe he was going for here. Listen, I didn't go to film school. I got a poli-sci degree, but I have seen a concerning amount of movies, and from that, when I think about utilizing direction to portray drama or emotion, my brain typically goes to more close-up personal shots of individual characters reacting to something going on around them. Don't get me wrong, there are a few scenes like that in the movie, but I feel like when you contrast the direction choices for the more emotional beats with the scenes of two robots pounding each other's heads in, that dramatic core driving the plot kind of just gets watered down and can feel slightly less impactful. On top of that, some of the camera movement is so strange. For example, take this scene. After making a deal with Max, Charlie dusts off the old 1-2 and teaches Adam a couple moves. This is supposed to be a kind of pivotal scene. It's kind of impactful, kind of funny, but for some reason, it's filmed on a fucking roller coaster. I don't know if it's the editing or intentional, but bro, we go up and down this road like 4 times. We're zooming in, we're zooming out, we're getting crazy. This is crazy and I don't really like it, but you know what? I'll give him a pass. I think oftentimes when it comes to film criticism, it's kind of easy to be as hypercritical as possible. Beyond the content of what we see in a movie, we as an audience don't really have a connection with any other aspect of it, like how it's made or the context behind, well, kinda anything. Like this video, for example. A few extra paragraphs in the script and I can make it sound like Real Steel is plagued with some amateur directorial mistakes, but I haven't directed anything. And when I look at Levy's filmography before Real Steel, things start to make sense. I see straight comedies. I see ensemble casts that probably required a lot of the shots that I've been complaining about. I see that apparently he made Big Fat Liar, so you know, that's something. What I'm saying here is that criticism is easy and empathy is hard. I've been making YouTube videos on and off for years now, and I'll let you in on a little secret, most of them sucked. But without the experience of making those videos, I couldn't have made this, which also might suck, but who knows, we'll see. At the end of the day, all I can do is learn and keep going. Just like Levy, he kept going and now he's making what hopefully will be the best Marvel movie in a while. Hopefully. I need you to come through for me, bro. I'm gonna look so dumb if it's bad. Alright, so finally, it's time to answer the big question. Was Real Steel mid? No. You see, Real Steel is not some dramatic character piece. Real Steel isn't even a movie about robot boxing. In fact, you already know what Real Steel is. We all do. How? We were told all the way back in 1963. At the end of the day, more so than anything, Real Steel is proof positive that you can't outpunch machinery, but it's proof also of something else. That no matter what the future brings, man's capacity to rise to the occasion will remain unaltered. I mean, it was like a little bit mid.